differently, you know, that you don't believe this one, that you believe this one, but you don't believe the other ones. So anyway, that's and plus too, like I said, too many cases came to me, and I didn't believe them. They didn't get any further, didn't get any further than me anyway. So there's that. Also too, now if you read this complaint, I will put it in the member section. If you read the complaint, you'll see that it's the typical story. 14-year-old kid was lured in by another 14, 15, 16-year-old kid, like Amway. They would get girls, uplink, download it, and brought to the Palm Beach mansion. Nothing about in his complaint about Orgy Island or Pedophile Island or Lolita Express. No, very simple. They got the kid at a high school. They brought him over to Palm Beach Mansion. That's where the kid got molested. Okay? ... And that's what all these cases are. There's nothing in there about basements on the island, or breeding children for adrenochrome factories and all this kind of crazy stuff. This is the legit, real work that's going on in this case that people don't need to come up with these hysterical stories and these crazy videos and all this other wild, hysterical stuff. Okay? Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about adrenochrome, if you Google Epstein adrenochrome, you'll see all this stuff. There's this hoax, this myth out there that what these people do is, or that what Epstein was doing, in the elite, is that they use a drug called adrenochrome, which was first made popular in the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the version starring Johnny Depp. And the theory is that you have to take small children and create fear in them, trauma and fear, and this stimulates their adrenal gland, and then they take that and they squeeze it out, I guess, or whatever, and they process it, and they make this drug called adrenochrome. And this is what the elite and the rich take, and they're addicted to this drug, and that's why they're doing all this activity. There's no evidence to this whatsoever, and I challenge you to find me a lawsuit, anything, a case, an arrest of the production of adrenochrome, right? Because it's just not out there. There is not over the counter, but there is a chemical called adrenochrome, which is if you take epinephrine, epidrine, which is adrenaline. You know when you used to watch what was that show, the ER with George Clooney, and they'd say get the epi, 2 grams of epi. And they pop him with that epi, and it brings the guy back to life. That's adrenaline, right? So this is the epidrine. They oxify it, and it's adrenochrome, and it comes up. And it says it causes psychosis and paranoia, all kind of stuff too. So it's a theory that the rich and the elite are addicted to this chemical, and they can only get it. By the way, I don't know why they couldn't get the epi. That stuff's out there all over the place. Although you don't see it sold on the black market that I could see, that I could tell. I had 2 cases in the past month. I got 2 people getting. As a matter of fact, what's today's date? I got 2 people being sentenced on drug charges. Okay, the one guy had GHB, another guy producing meth, and these guys never heard of adrenochrome, never heard of it. Worked on the Pete's Connection, big heroin smuggling case. And the adrenochrome never came up in that. He got an Epstein lawsuit. Adrenochrome doesn't come up in that, but it comes up on YouTube, and it comes up in these hysterical reports you see out there on Twitter, and these characters in 4chan and all that kind of stuff. Now, a couple of names you see attached to this adrenochrome. One is Charlie Sheen, and you may not realize this, but I was involved. I was the investigator in the lawsuit that Charlie Sheen sued against my client Capri Anderson. Okay, we know people who lived at Charlie Sheen's house. Okay, people who lived at Charlie Sheen's house later on went to live at my client's house, a different client. So we're very familiar with what's going on with Charlie Sheen. Personally, I am familiar with some of the most intimate details of Charlie Sheen's life. A lot of people know what I'm talking about. Read between the lines. But I have this information. And there's no adrenochrome comes up in this. So a lot of people who would think, here's the classic character, Charlie Sheen, who would be, obviously the guy's out there using drugs. We know what drugs he was using. We know what kind of... And by the way, too, I'm not saying he's innocent of any kind of sex with underage. people. There is some very credible documentation. His ex-wife, Denise Richards, wrote a letter to Child Protective Services saying, hey, I can no longer be custody and guardian for these two boys because they are showing clear signs of being abused. Okay? He's never been convicted of abuse. He's never been arrested for it or anything like that. But his ex-wife says clear signs, who is taking care of his kids, and we're not her biological kids. And she went out of her way to care for these kids. And she says, I can't have these kids in my home. She also made allegations of child porn on his cell phone, his computer, stuff like that. And in court, sworn documents in court. So there's all that. I'm not saying Charlie Sheen's a good guy like people like Alex Jones say he's a good guy. Okay? I'm not that guy. All right? What I'm saying is there's no evidence that he's ever used a drug called adrenochrome. Okay? Which is really a mythical drug that started in a movie and a book called Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Now, the source of that book is Hunter S. Thompson, who has his own allegations against him. But what would motivate him to expose this drug to people and tell them that's the big, big top secret the elites are using? Just not out there. Doesn't exist. Another one, people saying if you Google it, Google adrenochrome, Johnny Depp. Oh, look at him. He's showing signs of adrenochrome withdrawal. They're not only are there experts on YouTube and Twitter and 4chan of what adrenochrome is and who's using it and how they make it just out of their cold cloth, out of their head, but they also know what the withdrawals signs look like. Well, okay. We just did a show here recently. We had a guest on our show, and Johnny Depp's attorney listened to the show, and he made some statements disparaging my guest, and because my guest worked as a private investigator in the lawsuit. What's her name? Is Heard, against Johnny Depp there. So he's very familiar. This guy went looking for dirt on Johnny Depp. I know the dirt that he found, not the work product for the lawsuit, but I'm familiar with the work he did. Anyway, and again, we're aware of the drugs being used, but no, not aware of anything about adrenochrome. Again, it's not out there. So it seems like the further away you get from the reality and the people involved in these stories, that's where you start to hear these hysterical things, that are just taken as fact by people on the internet, these chat rooms and these message boards and stuff like that. But the further away you get, the less real it is. I've been played some repeats in the past couple of weeks of Abe and Ella, the Hempstead couple, who made these wild accusations years ago about the Papa eats babies. They put their children on, his stepchildren, her children. He was just a boyfriend. And I had him on my show, and I looked into this case, and I was disturbed by some things they were saying, by their attitude. They wanted to talk about marijuana and how that cures things or whatever, and you got your kids, you lost custody of your kids. At the time, I was fighting for custody of my kids, so I was very sympathetic with them. I tried to help them, but they didn't seem too concerned about that. And then he confessed to me on the air about hitting these children in the head with a metal spoon, and I says, well, you've been in jail, you've been in prison, you're a knock-around kind of guy. You can't handle these little kids. He goes, no, I was in fear of these kids. So it didn't seem like they had the kids' best interests at heart. And then we had some experiences with them off the air, and I reported all that to you, and you can just listen to that and make your own conclusions, without this hysteria, and stalking and harassment and going by the people who are consumed and obsessed with that case. So there's that as well. Now, I tell you about these things, because I believe I'm an advocate for victims, okay, especially in this area. There's a congressional hearings going on right now. You don't see much about it, but it's about the abuses that go on in these detention centers, where these immigrants are coming looking for help, and they're being held in these detention centers, right? And, well, what is this? It's very hard for me to see because my contact lens situation still hasn't been cleared up. But what is this? What's the number on here? Oh, boy. 4,000 556 sexual abuse complaints were reported to the Office of Refugee Settlement. And it's really not even well documented. Are these cases of these children being abused by are the children? Some of them we know for a fact. I think like 178 of them were people. 178 cases reported to the Justice Department. Adult caregivers at the U.S. facilities were reported to have sexually abused migrant minors. So that's the fact. See, and how things like to get twisted away is this bizarre theory that came up. Here you see little children being held in cages, right? And I'm not saying this is all Trump, because it was Obama who created those cages. Obama was abusing these children as equally as the Trump administration is right now. And people say, well, Trump's trying to rescue these kids from child traffickers. And that's why he's stopping this immigration at the border and holding them in these cages where they're being molested by the guards and by other detainees and stuff like that. And we even had a 16-year-old boy just recently died from the flu in there. Heartbreaking case. I talked about it when I had the flu, because I could really sympathize. I was so sick with the flu. My daughter just had the flu. And here's a 16-year-old young man. Beautiful kid, handsome guy. Strong kid. Just trekked, right? Across these borders out there, walking, making his way across the border. He had to be in good shape, and catches the flu inside the detention center and succumbs to the flu. Dies. So I cannot accept this theory that Trump is holding these kids in these cages where they're being sexually abused, in these cages, in these detention centers, because he's trying to save them. Okay, I think it's the exact opposite. So we also have and it's all part of a bigger picture. Okay? So many people will say that, well, Ed, I'm with you as far as advocating for children, but I don't agree with your politics. Ed, I don't agree with your politics. Most of you don't understand what my politics are. You have some kind of imaginary feeling they're going on. But I'm with you as far as advocating for these children. But at the same time, the same person will say, Ed, I agree with you. I'm a child advocate as well. But we need to close down these borders. And it works. You block up these kids in these cages. It's a deterrent to keep them from crossing these borders. So they're willing to accept that, I guess, because the people in those cages have a different color skin than yourself. And because you somehow think that, well, the powers that be can be so heartless and cruel to cage these kids, but they're not going to do it to you. Because in this case, now you're suddenly on the side of this powers that be. Okay? Like you identify with the people that are oppressing you. You can see them oppressing these kids in these cages. We know that they're molesting our kids in the case of Jeffrey Epstein and his rich, powerful friends. So we see. But in this case, well, no. In this instance, they're trying to help me by keeping these foreigners out of the country. And they're doing a good deed there because they want to help me with my job and keep my jobs and stuff like that. Somehow everything else they do to us is to oppress us and fine us and jail us. We got more people in jail and prison in this country than any other country on the face of the earth. But in this one case, every now and then they're doing something to help us. Okay, this is one of those things they're doing to help us. Okay, we got more people in jail in this country than anywhere else. But that's for our own good because they're protecting us from the criminals, the bad guys. I want you to stop and think. Is there any service out there that the government provides for us that does any good for us? Stuff like motor vehicle. Do they give a damn about how long we wait in the motor vehicle department? How much they tax us for this, they charge us for that, and we're sitting there for 6 hours? Of course not. And it's not just the government. Okay, it's private business too as well. It's capitalism is the problem. Okay, I was supposed to move to Florida. Let me look at the time here. I was supposed to move to Florida. Okay. I was supposed to move to Florida this week. All right, but we had a lot of things come up. One thing that came up was I lost my contact lens. I have to wear these hard. I tell you that whole story about miracle contacts and magical thinking. You can Google that and listen to the story about my hard contact lenses that I have to wear because I have a keratocoma and I have astigmatism, and I need custom-made contact lenses. They're not cheap. Okay. And I went through this whole rigmarole trying to use my insurance to get it. I couldn't get it done in time. I snuck through police barricades. There was a big standoff. I snuck through there to get to the eye doctor, and they couldn't do it for me in time. And then I ordered them through. I paid $900, $950 to get this contact lenses. And by the way, they're still not right. I got to go back Monday morning for a second fitting and a second thing. So I couldn't get my contacts done in time in order to get this move. I'm trying to move to Florida to take care of my old man. Right. And one of the reasons why is because the medical system in this country is a for-profit capitalist medical system. The medical industry does not care about you and me. What does it really cost to make these contacts? 50 cents, a dollar, $25, but we got to pay $900 for it. You got to wait online at the doctor for days and days and days. You got to go to. My daughter caught the flu. We had to spend the whole day at the doctor's to get a prescription for her for the flu, and then they screwed that up. They sent it to the wrong pharmacy. I had to drive around in the rain. All this stuff. Every single thing in our life today is so much more difficult and time-consuming than it was even 10, 15 years ago. Forget when I was in my 20s. Forget it, man. Life was so much. You can go into the bank. You can negotiate with people. But now it's all the personal touch is taken out of everything. I'll give you another example. We actually went and rented a U-Haul for this move. I was supposed to move the first of the month. Okay? And again, this took all day long. To rent a freaking U-Haul took all day long. We'll just take a commercial break and we'll get back and I'll tell you about that. And I'll tell you about a life hack too. Okay? If you ever need to rent a car, you got an emergency, you don't own a car, whatever, you got an emergency, you need to rent a car. And I tell you, well, you can't rent a car unless you have auto insurance and you have a credit card. Or a debit card, at least. Some places will take a debit card. But did you know you can walk into any moving rental and buy a moving van? Rent a moving van with no credit card and no insurance. Just rent it to you there for $50, $75. So if you ever really desperately need a car, you got to get someplace. You can always rent a moving van. Or they even got those moving pickup trucks. You can go to U-Haul and rent one of those. And we'll be right back after these messages with more of the Opperman Report. And now a word from our sponsors.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
Tina Helmuth is writing an ongoing series of fact-fiction books that boldly takes on today's most heinous crimes. Suffer the Little Children, The Wrath of the Father, and Unbreakable. Deeply researched and mixed with the supernatural, good versus evil makes these thrillers hard to put down. Available at lulu.com in paperback or ebook.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, what am I doing? Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. Oh, boy. Anyway, I was telling you about, I'm trying to explain to my politics, right, and why I'm a socialist. A lot of people think socialism means you get everything for free, but it's not. It means that if you're a worker, you get to keep all of the fruit of your labor. You get to keep all the money you worked for, okay? And we could have a situation where you can keep all your money. You wouldn't pay any taxes at all. 100% of the people listening to this show would pay no tax at all. And we would increase revenue by 40% a year. I've explained it many times. The problem is that we have these people who don't work. People like the Walton family, the 6 members of the Walton family that never worked a day in their life, but they own these pieces of paper. They hold these pieces of paper in their hand called stocks that says that they get to keep your money that you work for, the profit. They're going to keep it. Now, U-Haul. We needed to rent this U-Haul truck to drive to Florida, right? And I had put the tow hitch. I installed that myself, and I assumed, that this car, that for the light kit, when you step on the brakes, you need those lights that'll, light up for the brakes behind the tow hitch, behind the trailer. I assumed there would just be a little plug someplace installed by the factory. It's a fancy car. It's a Lexus. But there isn't. You got to install the light kit. So I go down there. First, we're trying to rent this trailer, and they tell us, oh, yeah, don't worry, man. You can fit a one-bedroom apartment in this trailer easily. And we get down there, we see it. This thing, nothing's going to fit this thing. Not even a mattress or a couch. It was so freaking tiny. Well, the next size up, you got to go to this other location. And we get over there, the next size up's not going to be big enough either. But we were going to do it and throw away half my furniture. Because at least in that one, we could get a mattress in it, have something to sleep on when I get down to Florida. But when we pay them, we pay them all this stuff. By the way, we were on the phone with these guys. Oh, this was an all-day operation. It took all day to rent a U-Haul. Something like, even 5 years ago, you could do it in a half hour. You just show up there in a half hour. Now, it's just gotten so crazy. Everything, because no one gives a damn anymore. U-Haul is a giant monopoly. Where else are you going to go? There's like three different moving companies, right? They're all in cahoots with each other. And they don't, we're on the phone with them, right? The place doesn't pick up the phone. Even when you drive over, there's 5 people sitting around. But they don't pick up the phone, so it goes to the call center. And you try and work it out with them, and they don't even know what's going on. They're telling you, oh, no, it looks like you already picked it up. So we didn't. And then they're telling you, well, we have no way of calling the location for you. Okay? So all of this system is not designed for the efficiency and the convenience of the consumer. It's designed to save money so that the stockholders who own a percentage of that company can squeeze out more money. Okay, out of this system here, by trying to squeeze out more dime out of your pocket, out of my pocket, so that someone sitting at home holding a stock in their hand makes more money. Now, a lot of people will listen to this show and say, "What? I have money in the stock market, ho ho ho, and I like seeing my stock market, my money go up, ho ho ho." Well, here's what you need to understand: 80% of all stocks in the world are owned by the top 1%. Okay, 80%. 40% of households in the country own any stock at all, and that's mostly through their 401k. So the 40% of the country that is involved in the stock market is a a minute percent of the overall stock market, which is owned by the elites. The same guys you're all concerned about, right? Like Epstein and Trump and him, and right? The Rothschilds, all those guys that everybody's all upset about. The enemy, remember the elites, right? All those guys, they're the ones that are benefiting from the stock market. They're the ones holding those pieces of paper that say they don't have to work, but you have to work. That's what capitalism is, okay? That they don't have to work. Their capital, their money, is going to work for them. They're just going to buy a piece of paper. They don't have to work. And then you got to go out and get up in the morning and go to work and stuff like that, and then your money goes to them. And then all day long, anything you need to rent a truck or you lose a contact lens, all that money goes right back to them. Everything that you spend money on goes right back to that same bunch of folks, the masters of this world, okay, that are so bored that they're out there molesting kids. Some people say they're making adrenochrome too. Yeah, go ahead, say that. Okay, now people will say, "Hey Ed, socialism doesn't work. Look at Venezuela, right?" Well, did you know that it came out this week that Rudy Giuliani, acting as a free agent, using his juice with the President of the United States, contacted Maduro, the president of Socialist Venezuela, and was trying to negotiate a deal with him to step down, okay, on behalf of business interests, okay? Now, they tell you on the news, well, the reason why we don't like Venezuela is because, the people there are poor, they're being taken advantage by their government, they were illegally, the elections weren't up to snuff, that we didn't like them. But when it comes down to it and when it's exposed, what it turns out is that Trump got his buddy, Rudy, to negotiate down there with Maduro to step down on behalf of business interests, to go in there and take over the oil industry in Venezuela. Because they want to privatize that oil industry. Oh, by the way, too, man. Oh, my God. There was this is one of the things I wanted to talk about. I should stop the show right now and go look it up and find it for you. I found there was a report that just came out about the three main countries, China, Russia, and the United States, that all have privately owned oil industries. The oil industries, it was like $500 billion is subsidized by the government, okay? Now, 85% of the world, okay, the oil industry is owned by the government. The people own the oil. They own that natural resource it's under our feet. They own it equally. That money goes back to the people. But there's a couple of countries. One of them is Russia. The oligarchs run it. Gangsters run it, right? And the KGB guy runs it. It's owned by his buddy. Our oil industry is going to be private. I'm going to give it to my friend over here. And he's going to get all that money. The United States, too. These guys, they privately owned oil industry. It's not owned. $200 billion a year in profit could be going in your pocket and my pocket. We just let it squander through our fingers. But Ed, socialism doesn't work. If it doesn't work, why do we have Rudy Giuliani, this gangster, that by now no one sees as a gangster, down there trying to negotiate with the deal on behalf of business interests to remove the president of Venezuela? Why do we have the CIA down there destroying their power grid, manipulating the food markets, to destroy this country, to battle with this country, to destroy their little... Right? It doesn't work. Just let it fail. Right? If it didn't work, why all this effort to put it out of business if it doesn't work? Right? Of course it makes no sense. And here we have Giuliani exposed what he's doing here. And it gets, barely covered at all, in the news, anything whatsoever. And one of the reasons is, one of the ways they do this is through distraction, right? And a couple of things came out this week. This whole big treasure trove of emails came out through the Freedom of Information Act. Where is this? Through this magazine. It's a college magazine called, where is it? Oh, Just Security. Okay? And they went and they used the Freedom of Information Act to get all these emails between the Pentagon and the, where do I have all this stuff? One second. Okay, here it is. It's actually right there in my notes. Okay, it's actually right there, right in front of me. Okay, this magazine, Justice Security, files the Freedom of Information Act request, and they get all of these emails, and the documents reveal back and forth growing concern from the Pentagon officials that this hold on the Ukrainian funds, right, would violate the Impoundment Control Act, which requires that the executive branch to spend money as appropriated by Congress, right? And the necessary steps to avoid this result weren't being taken. So now, what they tell you is, remember that guy Jim Jordan, that really creepy guy? He doesn't wear a suit jacket to Congress. Okay, he's a wrestling coach from Ohio State University, and he was in that locker room down there in Ohio State University where there was this big, giant, creepy sex scandal going on, where they were allowing the staff and their staff's friends and stuff like that to come down there and shower with the boys in this locker room. That Jim Jordan was assistant wrestling coach. And there's a big lawsuit with 30 defendants and about 10 John Doe, 30 complainants, victims, and 10 John Doe defendants, but they haven't been named yet. All right? They're saying, hey, what the hell? We have all these witnesses saying that they were at the showers were open, the locker room was open to staff and their friends and stuff like that. And every day around 3 o'clock, when the athletes were down there taking showers, all these men would show up, and they're masturbating in the showers, and they're having oral sex with each other in the showers, and in the hallways, and the staircase, and all stuff like that. And well, I reported this every day to complain. We had to kick these guys out and chase them out of there every day. Jim Jordan never saw a thing. And it turns out we find out, and we reported here exclusively, that the doctor that's being fingered in all this was saying that they, with all the mainstream press says, well, what the story was, there was a doctor there, and the students would come in with a sore thumb, and he'd make them pull down their pants and such. And that's what the scandal is. Well, that doctor worked out of a building called the Wexner Building. Les Wexner, best friends with Jeffrey Epstein, happened to be down there. He was a trustee down there, still is a trustee down there. Okay? And Epstein himself donated $4 million to that. I talk about it this weekend with Stephen Hoffenberg. So, all this time, that guy, Jim Jordan, the guy up to his neck in that scandal there, during his impeachment hearings, he kept saying real fast, stuff like, well, the president doesn't like donating money. He doesn't like foreign aid, does he? The president doesn't like that, does he? And so when this new guy from Ukraine came in, he said, well, hey, let's keep an eye on this guy. Let's check him out. Let's hold this money here. We'll hold it for a couple months. We'll check this guy out. We're going to observe him and see if there's any corruption going on down here. That's what his motive was. Well, that's what Jim Jordan said to you over and over. And they must have said it 45, 50 times. It was nauseating. And then they had that turtlehead, who's that guy, Moscow Mitch. They had him go up and he said the same exact thing, but just slower. Just said it slower. You know, it's the whole speech, the whole thing over and over and over again. You know, the Ukraine, they never knew the aid was held up. It was held up to examine them for corruption. And when they got the aid, they never got the press conference that they asked for. They said the same freaking thing over and over. Well, it turns out all that's out the window. Because we have here in the emails from the Pentagon to the budget office of management and budget, back and forth. If you read these emails, and they're available on the link at this Just Security magazine, they got the emails right there. They're going back and forth saying, hey, what's going on with this, you know, these are the people that are supposed to be doing that investigation to verify. That's all done. There was no new scrutiny or investigation and examination of corruption going on here. These were the guys saying, hey, Congress authorized this money. We only have a couple of days. If we don't send it to it, it has to go back into the what is that called? It goes back to the bank, like in the government bank. The government, I forget what it's called. Anyway. The emails also say that there was no rationale ever given why the hold was put in place. These are the people involved. Just that, hey, these are the president's orders. So this is that smoking gun you need, and it just came out. And you want to know when it came out? It's fascinating to hear when this came out. All this just hit the news right before Trump decides to go and drone kill this Iranian general who's running these militias and stuff like that. Now, all the news is about this drone attack there in Iraq of this Iranian official. Now, here's the thing. Like Wag the Dog. You're familiar with that movie? They don't show it a lot anymore, you know? But Wag the Dog. By the way, you know who that character in that movie is based on? Robert Evans. We just did a show about Robert Evans ordering a 16-year-old girl from Heidi Fleiss. But that's who that character is based on. That's Robert Evans, you know? And Dustin Hoffman was very friendly with Robert Evans. Anyway, you got this creepy guy, Jim Jordan, who's associated with this Wexner-Epstein scandal down there. Sex scandal down there in the locker rooms, right in front of his eyes, doesn't see a thing, knows nothing, like Sergeant Schultz, knows